So the Philadelphia 76ers dropped game one of the season. No Joel Embiid, no Paul George, but there was Tyrese Maxey and so much more in this game. We're going to break it all down and our biggest takeaways overall from the contest at game one against the Milwaukee Bucks.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. You are Locked On with the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm Kayla Santiago alongside Keith Pompey each and every day. Your favorite podcast now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On 76ers daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Make sure you sign up for free now on LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with all the new free Locked On 76ers newsletter. And you can start the season with a big return to FanDuel. Make sure you place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, so the 76ers fall in game one. Really what we expected analyzing this game going into the contest. You don't have your two main guys on the other side of the Milwaukee Bucks. They've got Giannis. They've got Dame too. My takeaway is it's exactly what I expected here, Keith. But I did see some good things, especially coming off the bench with Yabusele, Andre Drummond, and everything in between. What were your thoughts right off the bat after the game came to an end?
I felt like, Tyrese Maxey needs some more help. I felt like, Tyrese Maxey was, trying to bail him out. But in regards to the starting lineup, like you look at it, KJ Martin was 1 for 3, right? Eric Gordon was 1 for 6, right? And KJ had 3 points and Eric had 2. So, it just like, yeah, we saw some pretty good things coming off the bench with Caleb Martin, Yabusele and Kyle Lowry, right? But KJ struggled. So to me, it just looked like they just need somebody right now in the immediate future who's going to step up in the starting lineup and help them. Now, I did like what Kelly Oubre did. He had 21 points. He was 8 for 18, but he shot 1 for 6 on 3. So when you look at it, the 76ers missed 23 of 31 three-pointers, and they shot 41.8% overall from the field. So it just seems like they just need to get somebody else in the starting lineup who can take some of the load off of Maxey, but they also need to be able to knock down shots. I feel like that was my takeaway, that they just didn't, make the shots that they could have to make this game closer and probably would have pulled off an upset.
Yeah, things just weren't executed great in this game, and it is game one. So you can't look too harsh on that, but you can look at it just a little bit. Another thing, too, about KJ Martin, I like the aggressiveness, but he did have 2 quick fouls early on in the contest in that first quarter. So that is something you have to look out for, especially when you have a limited bench coming in with the injuries to Joel Embiid and Paul George at this point in time. So Tyrese Maxey, he's going to be the guy, and he's going to be the guy until Joel Embiid comes back. That's just how it's going to be right now. But I completely agree with you. They need more help. I will say I was a little bit surprised on the decision to start KJ Martin over Kayla Martin. Now, I was thinking it kind of in Nick Nurse's shoes. Maybe you want a little bit more depth. Maybe you want another scrappy guy coming off the bench in your first game. KJ Martin gets those 2 quick fouls. What were your thoughts on the start of KJ over Kayla?
You know what? I kind of felt like they were going to go that way. And the reason why I felt that, and I think we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is because, you have KJ, who's actually really a power forward. He's a little undersized, but he's a power forward, and he played well in the preseason. And then you have Eric Gordon. He had a rough shooting night, but he's the best 3-point shooter on the team. So when you look at that, I'm thinking that, they probably were thinking that maybe we can do this and work out. Now, me, to be honest with you, I the way that Kyle Lowry played tonight, I think they might be better off starting him. You know what I mean? Like basically having that starting backcourt that they had last year with Maxey and Lowry. And then now the only problem is who are you going to bring in? You're going to have to bring Reggie Jackson in and play him. But I'm looking at it like Kyle knocked down some threes, right? He had a team high 3 3-pointers. He shot 3 for 5. So I'm looking at him like as a guy that's saying, you know what, if you're going to gamble with him, and then maybe you can go with KJ, or maybe you can just decide to go with Kayla. You know what I mean? That way, I just think that you have nothing to lose at this particular point.
You really don't. And the one thing I do like that Nick Nurse did do on the other side of the coin is bringing in and trying to experiment with Yabusele and Andre Drummond on the court at the same time. It was very, very quick and it was very, very short-lived, but I did really like to see that. Now it's going to be tough keeping that up, of course, with Joel Embiid not playing in regular season games for the time being right now, because you do need somebody to back up Drummond at points of the game. But I want to talk about the offensive rebounding. So I'm looking really early in the contest, and I feel like this fell off just a little bit as the game kept on going. But early on, it was a 10-10 tie halfway through the first quarter. They're holding a 4-0 edge in terms of the offensive rebounding to the Milwaukee Bucks, and 6 of their 10 points happened on second chance opportunities. Now, Andre Drummond finishes with 13 rebounds, and at this as when Joel Embiid comes back, that's going to be huge to have a guy like Andre Drummond giving you those second chance points coming off the bench when everybody's good and healthy to go. But I would like to see Drummond keep on doing that, keep it happening, but guys do have to hit their shots on the outside. I want to see Kelly Oubre get a little bit more involved. KJ Martin maybe going out there and hitting some shots. But the offensive rebounding early on, especially Keith with Andre Drummond, is something we were looking at going into this game. And it was good to see him get back at it. He calls himself the rebound king. And early on, it was working out for him.
Yeah, it was early on working out for him. And like, you know, you're right. He could have had some more. I mean, he did finish with 5. You know, Caleb Martin had 4. You know, he had 9 total, 4 offensive rebounds. And the one thing, though, when you look at it overall, that was one of the categories that they performed better than the Bucks in. Like the Sixers had 17 offensive boards. Milwaukee had 8. Milwaukee, actually, the Sixers finished with 49 rebounds total compared to 46 by the Bucks. So, you know, that was something that they did well. But yeah, like Drummond, initially he was crashing. The thing is, the problem was, you're right. They were going down there. They were taking these one possession shots, and then the team would just go on a run and at certain times, you know. But, you know, you look at the stats and you realize that, you know, they did when Caleb was in there. It was Caleb and then Yabusele were in there. You know, they really crashed the boards and helped out a lot.
So Tyrese Maxey, too, you know, going off of that, there's already going to be a lot of pressure on him. I think he definitely did rise to the occasion. We're going to touch on that even more in our next segment coming up. But this is going to be really tough for Tyrese Maxey, I think. You know, Paul George seems to be coming back a little bit sooner than Joel Embiid will later on to this early regular season. But it's going to be, I think, take a little bit of time. Now, granted, it's not easy when your first game is against Giannis and Damian Lillard and all the other pieces. Bobby Portis Jr. apparently going off too here today against the Milwaukee Bucks at times throughout the game last night. But when you look at it, Tyrese Maxey, it's not only that he has a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but trying to get all of these guys involved, trying to figure out what rotations work on the floor. It's going to be some bumps and bruises down the road early on. I like how Tyrese carried himself, but he even said it after the game last night. He wants to be better. He has to make more shots, and he's going to go in the gym and try to make that happen going into their next couple of games without PG and Joel Embiid, Keith.
Yeah, he is. He's motivated. He's really motivated to prove, you know, that he can be that guy and also to play better because he realizes that he didn't play up to his standard.
That he does. So we're going to see if Tyrese Maxey is able to ramp it up, and we're going to go a little bit more into what he was able to do last night and some things we want to see a little bit more of. People, it's still early on in the season. No need to freak out just yet. I know it's not what everybody wanted it to be without Joel Embiid and Paul George, but at the same time, there is still time to get this group together. Trust in Nick Nurse, what they're going to do, and see what they can bring to the floor. But before we get to all that, we have to tell you about Game Time. Talking about the 76ers, it gets us so excited to get ready for Game Time as well. It's going to be fantastic once these teams ramp up their season and get ready to go. But it still is the NFL season, and there's a lot of good games that you can go to, being live in the atmosphere and the crowd. And since we're talking about Philadelphia, we'll stay in that city for a road game for the Philadelphia Eagles at the Baltimore Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium. That's Sunday, December 1st. You can get a super deal in the top 1% value section, 103, row 8, and upper end zone, row 7, for the all-in deal. That's the top 10% value for $330. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, make an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, make sure you create an account and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Of course, it is Game Time. All right, so Tyrese Maxey is going to be the top of conversation for a really long time with this team. And, you know, you'll look at it and you say, okay, he definitely did not perform his best. Part of that is probably going into game one of the season. You're a little bit rusty. It's really the first game at game speed besides the preseason games, which not everybody plays all of their starters, as we've seen throughout the past seasons in the NBA. But Tyrese Maxey, to me, I love the confidence when he shoots the ball. And every time that he makes it, I'm going to say, oh, that was a great shot, right? It's almost a little bit too much chucking the ball up there. And I don't know if he's trying to conserve some energy to make sure that he's good for all four quarters. But I love when he's aggressive, driving to the basket. To me, it looks like he's trying to conserve some energy, get the ball up there and get back down the floor defensively, maybe trying to test his shot out a little bit early in the season. And Keith, I do know that Tyrese Maxey does to add that consistently to his game, but it's not all the time that it needs to happen because he's so effective on the dribble drive.
Yeah. And you know, I feel like, you know, Tyrese said he wasn't pressing. But, you know, to me, I felt like he was pressing. Like, I felt like it was one of those things where, let's face it, you know, last year the 76ers were 16 and 27 without Embiid, and he knew that. He also knew that Paul George wasn't playing, and what he wanted to do is he wanted to will him to win. And there was times where, like you said, he would either fire up a three or he would drive the lane out of control and throw up an acrobatic layup, or he would get bumped and get fouled, but they didn't call the whistle. I mean, but a lot of times, and you saw this not just with him, but with other players, but there was times where guys were driving the lane and guys were wide open at the three-point line, and he didn't kick it back out to them. Others didn't. So I feel like that, you know, Maxey learned something about this. Like, yes, I got to be aggressive, but at the same time, I have to get teammates involved. I have to do a better job of that. And I have to play smarter. And I think that that's what he'll do the next game.
And it's definitely a high-pressure situation, right? You're going in. It's game one of the season. You're at home. You're playing the Milwaukee Bucks, a very good team in the Eastern Conference, too. And by the way, I do have to point out, he might have one of the worst whistles in the entire league in the NBA, because there's times that he's getting hit, he's not getting called. But hey, I guess they're letting them play, so we can't rely on the whistle to be able to get Tyrese Maxey to the line. But, you know, you look at this situation here, and one thing is going to be chemistry. Now, during the preseason, you could kind of build that up a little bit, but Tyrese maybe didn't know if Paul George or Joel Embiid was going to be out there. And when those guys are out there, Tyrese's game is going to look a little bit different. Nobody's asking him to change it, but it is going to look a little bit different. So when you look at it in this situation, the same guys you're kicking out to consistently during these first few games aren't going to be the same guys throughout this regular season if everybody is healthy. But I do want to see him get more people involved, because Tyrese may say he doesn't feel the pressures on him, but I have a feeling that he's feeling it. He feels like he needs to be this hero and score all the time. There's other guys that can get in there and score. Now, they're not the high caliber players of Joel Embiid and Paul George, But at the same time, if he gives confidence to those guys to kick it out and trust in his teammate, they can help him out so it's not all on his shoulders 24/7 when he's the only star out there on the floor.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, you look at Tyrese Maxey, he had 25 points. He shot 10 for 31, 2 for 9 on threes. 31 shots to me is way too much in a game like this. I mean, you look at Tyrese Maxey, he had 31 shots. Kelly Oubre had 18, right? And then Caleb Martin was at the third most shot attempts at 10. But then you go and you look at the Milwaukee Bucks, who have two guys who are top 75, right? All-time players. Dame Lillard had 19. He shot 9 for 19. And a lot of his stuff came in the third quarter when he was just, on a tear. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was a two-time MVP, right? Two-time. This guy only shot 11 times. So where it just looked like a point where, Tyrese, and I get it, like you said, he's not going to do it when these guys come back, but it was just gunning, like a lot of gunning. And, he had 31 shot attempts. He only had 3 assists. So, he just needs to do a better job of finding teammates.
And I look at it, too, with Tyrese Maxey, and it has to be tough because he has so many fun moments. Looking at the game last night, the buzzer beater at the end of the first, you think that he's going to start off really high when he has the first 3 of the game early on in the contest. And that's definitely momentum to build off of. But at the same time, you kind of look at it, and I hope that's something that they really focus on going into that next game against the Raptors tomorrow night, because that's a game I do think that they could come out on top of the victory. Listen, it was a tough deal getting the Milwaukee Bucks in game 1 without Joel Embiid and Paul George. Everybody knows that. And nobody's saying, oh, we're overreacting like crazy. It's the end of the world. It's the end of the season. People, I promise it's okay. But I do think that this is where Tyrese Maxey is going to grow even more. Keith, maybe he didn't even think that he was going to have to grow in this way coming into this season, maybe just playing second fiddle to Joel Embiid. But this is where I think that he can really make his stamp as a leader on this team. He already is. This can rise him a level above.
Exactly. And look, this is a prime example why I'm staying. Like, if it was me, I would try to see if I could get Kyle Lowry in there. Because here's the thing. Tyrese Maxey in this role, you want him to be a point guard when the other guys come. But right now, he's looking at like he has to score. Now, yeah, you could go out and score and you can do whatever you want, but you need someone else who's going to be able to be the facilitator to get others involved. And I feel like Kyle can do that, right? He's the best pure point guard that they have. So I feel like Kyle Lowry can do that. And what that will do is it'll free Maxey up to be a scoring guard, right? Right now, you need Maxey or whomever has the ball to score and facilitate.
I think the biggest thing with the Sixers right now is who are you going to have on the bench? And we talked about it moments ago. Who are we going to see kind of step up if Kyle Lowry does bump into that starting lineup? But I think the thing to remember is that this is definitely going to be temporary once Paul George and Joel Embiid come back. Make Tyrese Maxey more comfortable, give him more help, because at the end of the day, yeah, he's going to be the guy that you rely on, but there's other people in these positions that can do that, including Kyle Lowry. So Tyrese Maxey, look for some help because it is out there for you. I'm excited to see how he adjusts going in that game against the Raptors, Nick Nurse as well, and this team going into game 2 of this season. But we're going to talk about a topic that I'm really looking forward to, and it's the battle of the bigs down low. And no, we're not talking about the main one in Joel Embiid, but how about Guerschon, Yabusele, Andre Drummond, those guys definitely making a case and name for themselves last night, too, in game 1 of the season. We're coming up with that in just a moment. But you can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way you can get an action on in sports over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so your lineups stay in play. Even if one of your players gets injured, if your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineups live. And this is really good if you're betting on the Philadelphia 76ers, people, because we know injuries can happen. We've seen it throughout the year, so you're definitely going to want to go and check out Prize Picks today. Prize Picks invented the flex pay, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect, and you can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 line. A repeat offer and promo code there. Make sure you go do that. Once again, that's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. I highly encourage boys to go play and follow Prize Picks. So make sure you go check it out today. Prize Picks, make sure you run your game. All right, so this is a topic that I've been looking forward to discuss all night long, watching this game, analyzing it from that point of view too. So last night, or 2 nights ago, we should say, we did already predict that Andre Drummond was going to have a decent rebounding game. Overall total, 13 rebounds, 10 points, a double-double, a low one at that. Yabusele, though, I love how he came out of the gate, super aggressive, hits that corner three as well, gets the crowd pumping. And I talked about it in the segment before, Keith. I really like what Nick Nurse did very quickly and early on. Now, I understand that he couldn't keep Yabusele out there at the 4 and Drummond at the 5. You just don't have enough pieces on that bench to be able to consistently do that in game one without Joel Embiid. But this is something we could be looking at the future with those two playing at the same time, coming off the bench. We know about Drummond, but your thoughts on Yabusele, the dancing bear, as we call him, definitely trying to make a statement and had that same aggressiveness that he did in the Olympics on Team France.
He played well. I mean, he really played well. I mean, I'm looking at it. He had 10 points from 4 for 8 shooting. He only made 1 of 4 3-pointers, but the one that he made was huge. It was a nice one. But at the same time, I'm looking at this guy, and I get it. I understand it. Everybody talks about 3-and-D. We talk about him knocking down threes in the Olympics. But I'm not really looking at him as a 3-point shooter. I'm looking at a guy who can come in and defend, a guy who can grab rebounds, a guy who can just provide energy, right? Now, he did turn the ball over 3 times. He fouled out of the game. But he had 4 rebounds. He had 3 assists. And the stat that really stands out to me is that he had a game-high 3 steals, right? So he was extremely active. And he did everything that they asked him to play. And you look at it and you say, like, you know what? We talked about, like, who's going to be impactful, a guy that can bring it, a guy who can play well. Well, that performance is a performance that is, if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm saying, like, hey, I can keep this guy in a rotation and he could come out and he could play a pretty good role for us. So I really like what he did.
An NBA career high 3 steals as well for Yabusele. I loved it when he just completely ripped it out of the hands of Giannis Antetokounmpo and said, give me that, going the other way, and able to get the bucket for the Philadelphia 76ers. And Giannis is like, where's the foul? Where's the foul? You see the replay, and it is all ball. So the dancing bear was dancing and saying, Giannis, you were no match for me. Now, Giannis clearly was a match for him throughout the game, but it was exciting to see. And I really like this point because consistently year after year, it has been an issue. Who is going to back up Joel Embiid? Who's going to play when he is not healthy? Now, clearly, Andre Drummond is a very good backup for Joel Embiid. And we've looked at it when he was on the Sixers a time ago, too, saying he's probably the best one that we've seen back up Joel Embiid throughout his career. Now, that being said, there's going to be games where Joel is out on back-to-back. So this is something we're going to get used to seeing. Andre Drummond, we've seen a lot of him. We've seen a lot of his career, what he can do in terms of rebounding, especially on the offensive board side of things. 13 rebounds, 10 points. But Keith, what more do you want to see from him, especially knowing that we're not going to see Joel Embiid on back-to-backs? What did you like tonight most, maybe outside of the rebounding? And what do you want to see more of? What do you think that he's capable of doing to help this team even more down the line?
You know what? I think what I want to see more of is staying out of foul trouble. He had 5 fouls. Yabusele had 6. But the thing about Drummond is right now they're going to need him to be on the floor. Now, again, the dancing bear came out and he played, pretty well. But at the same time, you're going to need Drummond. You're going to need that rebounding. because what happens is, he grabs the rebounds. It's kind of like a cheat code, but then he can do outlet passes to guys, crashing, streaking down the court and getting to the lanes. So I think that, you just want him to have less fouls. Now you said, you liked his 5 offensive rebounds, but there was a point where you thought he was going to have way more than that. But I think the fouls kind of hindered everything. But yeah, I would love to see him to stay out of foul trouble.
And he's been in this league for a while now. He's got to be smart about it. And I love Andre Drummond because he definitely kind of has that Philly aura a little bit, that blue collar mentality of get out of my way. I'm going to bring this rebound and throw some elbows here. Everybody move out of my way. This is my house. And don't get me wrong, I really do love that. And I love the aggressiveness, but it has to come to a point. Not only that, officials every game might officiate differently. Officiating crews might say, okay, we're going to let them play a little bit, or we're going to tighten it up as soon as they come out of the gate. And Andre Drummond has to be aware of that, because they are going to call that no matter if he thinks it's a foul or he doesn't, especially at this point when he's garnering more attention with the Philadelphia 76ers. So I agree with you there. I think that he needs to stay out of foul trouble because you need him on the floor no matter what. And it's not only now, it's going to be throughout the season. And then you're probably also going to see him when Joel Embiid comes back play more, because Joel Embiid may be a minutes restriction. Even if he doesn't, you don't want to throw him out on the floor for the entire game as soon as he comes back and as soon as he's healthy. So looking at Andre Drummond to stay out of foul trouble, Yabusele, a little bit of the same. That's kind of been the hindering factor of backup bigs in past years with Paul Reed too, looking at that. But Keith, to wrap up this segment here and kind of looking at going forward for the Philadelphia 76ers, what do you want to see in the next game? I'm going to let you go first. I have my thoughts, but what do you want to see from this team knowing that they're 0-1 going against the Raptors on Friday?
I mean, the main thing is I think I need to see better shooting, like, from the three. To miss 23 of 31 3-point shots is nasty. That's ugly, right? So they need to do that. So I need to see better shooting. They also shot 41.8% from the field, which isn't good. They also struggled in the perimeter defense. Like, they gave up 43.2% from three. But to me, the thing that really hurt them was the lack of shooting. And I think it all starts with Tyrese Maxey. I think he has to make better decisions. I think he has to shoot the ball better. But I think the main thing is if he makes better decisions and gets more guys involved, and then it's probably going to, it's going to carry over. So, yeah, shooting the ball, and Tyrese has to make better decisions.
I completely agree with you on the Tyrese Maxey prediction there. When you look at it, Tyrese is the leader now, whether he wants to be or not. He is the true leader. Yes, Joel Embiid and Paul George are on the bench, but Tyrese is the guy out there. People are going to be looking at him. People are going to be watching him. He needs to be the guy that makes better decisions. And it's not only, Tyrese Maxey has to go out there and score 35 points. No. Get some guys out there to get involved, get some help. We'll see if Nick Nurse does pair him and Kyle Lowry a little bit more going into the home of these two as well, Nick Nurse and Kyle Lowry, where they won an NBA championship together. But I agree with you on Tyrese Maxey. I would also like to see Nick Nurse get a little deeper in that bench. We saw very little of Jaron McCain. We saw very little of Ricky Council, and I understand it against the Milwaukee Bucks. Maybe you don't want to see those guys in game one of the season, but you need help in some aspects, so that might work out. And then perimeter defense is my number one thing. Listen, Joel Embiid and Paul George are out, and I get Paul George is a good perimeter defender, but you can't just only have those two guys defending. I mean, these guys need to step up. I want to see Kelly Oubre be better on the defensive side of the ball, even Tyrese Maxey going out there and contesting, Kayla Martin too, KJ Martin as well, just everybody. It's the whole team, people, needs to get better on the perimeter defensively. So I agree with you on that one for sure. Before we send things off, Keith, one last thing. One thing that you positively liked about the game last night. It was tough. They did fall. There was a lot of mistakes in there, but one thing that you can really take away that you're looking forward to them building upon.
You know what? The thing that I really liked is something that they could build upon was Caleb Martin's performance, right? But I also think, Kyle Lowry, he really didn't show us a lot in the regular season, right? I mean, the preseason, but, shooting 4 for 7, 3 for 5, having 13 points, 6 assists, a team high 6 assists, like no turnovers. To me, those two things stood out the most for me, those two performances.
Kyle Lowry back home. He played at Villanova, played some time in college at the Wells Fargo Center. He's ready. He's ready to go back to playing the Raptors and saying, I'm with Philadelphia now. So we'll see if he can step up. I think he's going to be a crucial part to how Tyrese Maxey can develop without Paul George and Joel Embiid in the game. So the Philadelphia 76ers fall in game 1 of the season against the Milwaukee Bucks. They will be back in action on Friday night, and we will break everything down for you tomorrow as well. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers, your favorite podcast. Now has a newsletter introducing the Locked On 76ers daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Make sure you sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with all the new free Locked On 76ers newsletter. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long for now. It's a long season, people. Don't freak out just yet. No time to panic as the Philadelphia 76ers look to get into the win column on Friday night.